What is up, Nerf Nation? I'm Naptown Nerf, and today we're going to try to install and do a guide for the Select Fire kit from lighttake.com. This is a kit that's been on Taobao for quite a while, and it's gone through many variations, and he's improved on it each time. I don't know the guy's name that actually designed this kit, but it is a very cool kit, and I think it's a very good kit. And it's a little bit involved to install, but I hope it's not as hard as it looks. And I'm going to attempt to do a guide for it, although this is my first time doing this, so it may be a bit of a process. So let's go ahead and try to get started. There is a very good instructional guide on Taobao for this kit, and I will definitely link that in the description box below, as that will probably be very helpful to you along with this guide. So let's get started. Alright, so it says that we need some tools. We need a soldering iron, a cutting device, a screwdriver, a pair of needle nose pliers, and a pair of side cutters. I also feel like you're probably going to want some sort of Sharpie or something to mark things with, just so you can see where to cut. And then if there's any other tools we need, I will let you know. Obviously, you'll probably need solder to go with the soldering iron, and you'll probably need some sort of silicon wire and whatever else you need to actually wire up your Stryfe, because it does tell you to gut everything. Now, I'm assuming you can wire this into the stock loom if you wanted to, but if you're putting this kit in, I recommend upgrading your Stryfe with a LiPo, and I will be doing this guide for a LiPo. I haven't rewired this Stryfe yet, but that will happen probably, obviously, before the end of this guide. I just wanted to see where all these things will fit before I wire up my Stryfe, because there's just going to be a lot more wires in this blaster than there normally are. So let's get started. So after you unscrew your blaster, remove all the parts that I've obviously removed. I've gutted the entire thing. I don't believe you have to gut the entire thing, but the directions on the website are very good and tell you what you need to remove before you start. We will need to take this piece here, it looks like, and we're going to have to put it in this region here, and it tells us to cut this piece of plastic here in between two certain points. So I'm going to try to mark where I think that needs to be cut. Somewhere right in here and back here. So I've kind of marked where I think that needs to be cut at, and then we will use our side cutters, or you could possibly even use an X-Acto blade. It recommends using a blade first and then using your side cutters. So to go with the directions, that's what I'll do. That probably will help it from splitting a little bit. Now, when you're using an X-Acto blade, obviously be very careful. This is a brand new blade, so it is going to be very sharp. So we will just take this and go right down straight as possible. Alright, now we will use our side cutters to kind of cut that out. There we go. Kind of went on an angle there. I'm sure there's lots of ways to do it. And then I always find that it usually works out pretty well just to twist with your pliers. Something like this, and then we can clean it up. A file, a small file may be useful, or sandpaper to get this a little bit cleaner. You can also use just a pair of side cutters here and try to clean it up. It says that it should be smooth up in this area. Mine doesn't look too bad, but there is like a little port there, so we'll go ahead and just try to smooth that out. It's showing that we need to also make a shell cut in the panel here, which is where your kind of your jam door area. I'm guessing some wires are going to come through here, so we'll go ahead and do what they say and cut into this. Don't think it wants you to go all the way through, obviously, but maybe down to the line there. That's kind of where I'm going to start. Alright, we did that. let's go ahead and get a small file. A small file set and some sandpaper is going to be very helpful for you guys. So I also recommend those tools. I'll try to link in the description to any tools that I've used here. All right. So that part is done. I guess there is a tab on the other side of the shell here that needs to be cut, and that would be this top ridge that goes to the stock attachment point here. So we'll cut that off. All right, hopefully that is clean enough. If not, we can always go back and touch it up. We'll put that aside. Okay, so I went ahead and installed the gear here that is gonna run our pusher. You take the motor out to do this at this point. It fits in nicely. Just make sure your wheel isn't interfering with anything, and if it is, then you just have to remove a little bit more plastic. So that looks pretty good there. And we're going to take 2 screws. These are self-tapping screws, and we are going to mount them into the designated areas. One of them is back here in this big hole, and it's going to go through into the battery tray, and then the other one will be here and go also into the battery tray. So we will use those to tap the holes, and then I believe we remove them after that. Alright, now we go ahead and remove those screws. We can go ahead and remove the motor, and there are our tapped holes. Looks pretty good. On that side, that's what it looks like. So that's pretty good. I might go ahead and sand down the plastic there so it's smooth inside the battery tray for the screws to sit on. Alright, now it is telling us to install the motor. It says that it's supposed to come with some grease to put on the shaft here, but I did not receive any of that. I'm sure you can use silicone grease or white lithium grease if you have some of that. If yours came with some, then use that, obviously. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and wait on that until later on, but it says to make sure you have this pusher arm part straight up, and then you install the motor in this way, I believe. See if it matters which side is negative and positive. It shows that it's this way, so we'll go ahead and install there. Okay, hopefully that's good. It kind of pushed it forward a little, and then we'll install it. Now it looks like mine is hitting this corner here, and I might need to remove just a bit of plastic. That is because of the motor terminal that is actually broken off, so I'll have to resolder that back on, but this is interfering with this terminal. So don't force it in, you don't want to break that off. This may be a slight tolerance issue with the motor and the Stryfe itself, but if we just take a little bit off, I think we'll be okay. Alright, there we go. And I'm going to resolder this, but I'm going to resolder it on the back side so it doesn't get knocked off like that again. Alright, I'm going to take this out now, and it wants us to put the board in. Actually, it said that before this, but I wanted to make sure that was going to fit right and do that modification first, because you don't want to be cutting with this board in place. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and install this board in here and make sure it lines up well. It shows it without these parts, but I'm going to try to leave those connected so they don't get messed up. Now we will install this motor into its spot. And there we go. It says make sure it's a good fit. It seems to be a good fit. I don't notice any issues offhand, so that's good. Now it wants us to flip it over and install those screws but we are not using the screws we tapped with. We are using a shorter screw, so make sure you get a shorter screw out here. We'll try to find the screws they're looking for. They are the M2.6 8mm screws, and these were the 12mm screws, I believe. So we will try to get those out here. I believe these guys are the ones that we want. They look like they've been cut off, and they have a tapered head, and we will install them into the hole here. I'm going to actually use a slightly bigger screwdriver so we can get it to go in. I wouldn't over tighten, but you want to make sure it's in there good. So we'll do that, and then we'll do this one. Okay, that's pretty good. Okay guys, so as you can see, I got some pretty sweet parts in the mail for this project, and I've got those installed. I have run the wires that I needed to for powering the Stryfe, but I have not wired it up to the switch, or actually even to the Dean's connector that will connect into my motors yet. I want to go ahead and install this piece, which is going to go to your positive and negative terminals on your battery, or into the wires that go into your XT60 or connector of choice for your LiPo. So since we're doing a LiPo, I'm going to connect the red wire to the positive and black to the negative. And I know my wire coloring is crazy because I wanted to do something a little fun and different, but for you guys, the blue is positive and the white is negative. So the black will go to the white and the red will go to the blue, and we should be good there. So I'm going to go ahead and wire those up, shrink wrap those points, and then move on. All right, that should fit in there nicely, and then this will plug in. There we go, just like that. And then we are going to go ahead and put this guy in place, which should just slip right on there. Now I did notice that on my stock triggers that this part right here was thicker, so it may depend on what generation your Stryfe is, or just random casting. But if this is a little bit big, you could just carve it down a little bit with a X-Acto blade, and just make sure that sits down on there nice and flat. And then we will take a screwdriver and tighten this guy down. Alright, that should be on there nicely. Now, I don't think you necessarily need super glue or anything like that, but if you wanted to go ahead and make that more permanent, then that is one way to do it. So, for now, I'm just going to leave it like that, and then if I decide I need to secure it a little bit better, then I can go back and do that. And then we want to use our spring that they included here for our trigger, and that should be good. Alright, so I have run my wires up through here, and this will go to the motors, and this is the wire here that is going from up here, and this will connect into my normally open down here, and then this will connect into the common, which is right here. And I've kind of cut a groove out here for this to slot in, and I hope that I can keep it out of the way. I'm going to have to shorten these. These have come unconnected, but that's no big deal. I'm going to have to unconnect them all and then re-solder them to this board, because this wire is going to be too long as it's supposed to sit down in here. But because of replacing our micro switch there, that we cannot put it there. And this will go here, and then you will use your original trigger screw to lock that down. Okay, so assuming that the Stryfe will close, this should work position-wise, because the trigger will not go back far enough to hit that. It's going to actuate this trigger prior to moving back far enough to interfere with this. Alright, so if you are curious about how to desolder these correctly, all you need to do is take your soldering iron and get the connection hot enough where the solder flows and then remove the wire. You ideally don't want to just pull the wire off the connection. So I went ahead and cut these down to the length I need, and I kind of wanted to be aware of how I'm going to run the wire. So the black one is the lowest point and is going to kind of have to do a little loopy like this so it doesn't get broken again. So I'm going to connect that one first. So I've already tinned my wire there, and I will connect it to this point. There we go. That's all it took, and it's connected. That's pretty easy. The next one I want to do is the yellow, and I'm going to run it just like that, and then the red last. And your colors might be completely different, so just make sure you know what wires went where when you desolder them. And you want it to stay as still as possible, which is tricky sometimes when you're holding it in your hand. Hopefully that's good. And then we can place it into our Stryfe. So obviously it's going to be handy to have some wire cutters and strippers for this project if you're doing this method and connecting it to a LiPo and having to change the length of the wires. That looks pretty good. Alright, so I put everything back into place. I put the motor back in and secured it with the 2 screws on the back side. And just remember to grease your motor before you put it in there, and then this is supposed to be sticking up. And one other thing that I want to note real quick is, depending on exactly how you do this, you may have to make a slight modification. I had to trim off just part of this right here to make room for the tab of the switch here and the wire. So not a big deal. It shouldn't affect anything, and everything closes up just fine so far. So we're going to go ahead and try to plug some things into place. I already have the voltage regulator plugged in, which is the bottom one. Then the power is the next one up. Then this trigger switch is the one above that. All that is plugged in. Now we need to plug in the motor, which actually goes in the very, very top back right there. And they have a very good diagram on this online. The directions are very good. So, okay, so that is connected. And then the last one is this one right here, which goes at the very top on the left. And there's really only one place for that to go. So everything should be good there. Let's go ahead and move on to the board that will control your select fire, and this will be secured into your jam door here. This should already be connected. Mine was, but if it isn't, make sure you have it in the right orientation. My red wire is down. The top wire is purple, so know that. And then you made that slit earlier, and it will slide right in there. Keep all the wires, and then you can place this on either side of the jam door. And I'm going to choose to put it on the left side, but it can go on the right. Alright, they are the black ones with the bigger flat head on them, I do believe, so we will use those. Alright, we'll place those into that slot, and then we'll put this into its place. So that looks good there. Okay, next we are going to secure this guy and I believe the pusher arm here. So I'm actually going to do this one first. There, the screw is already in there, so we'll take it out. And then for this one, it wants you to use the screw that came in the kit. Do not use the screw that originally goes in there, it says. So I will obey them and do that. I I'm guessing it has to do with the head being too big of the stock screw, so we will use this one, I believe, which comes with the kit. Okay, and it says to go ahead and make sure everything fits in, so we will do that. Looks pretty good, and that is it except for programming, unless you have the selector switch that goes right here. Alright, so let's go ahead and work on the select fire switch here. And I think everything we need will be in this baggie, which is really nice. They kind of keep everything together. And we'll go ahead and flip this guy over and take this piece, and it shows that it will be placed this way. We will go ahead and place the longest screws here around the outside. So I'll go ahead and do that. Go ahead and get them started. Alright, so there we go. And now we will place this here, and then we will go ahead and hold it in place and drill our holes. There we go, just kind of go back and forth until you get it in there and it's flush. And I think it's nice to get one set there, and then you can go at the other two. So, alright, there we go. Now we will take the big guy, put it in the middle, and drill that one. And you're going to want a bigger screwdriver for sure if you're using this and not an actual drill. So we will grab a large screwdriver here and get this one going. So that is a bit of a pain. All the other drilling I've done with the screws, but this one I may just use a drill bit to go in there with. I've kind of got it marked, and I want it to be very clean for this project, so I'm going to go ahead and use a drill bit. I'm sure it's possible to use this, but it's a little difficult. This will still give me a nice guide, and I have a good mark there now to know where the center is, and we just need to find the right drill bit. Alright, so I had to do that off camera, but I just used a 3/16 drill bit to drill that out. So now you have to remove these screws. It says we need to remove the inside part of this. So I'm going to use snips. You could also use like an X-Acto blade, but this just is usually much safer. Okay. Now it says to take this plate and the other plate, I believe together, use the smaller screws, or the medium size screws, the 8mm, and we will install those in here. Alright, now I believe we flip it over and we will install this guy right in there, I think. And then we will use the littlest screws to go in here. And then we just put this guy, I believe, on here. So you just put it on so it's flat. We want to get it, I guess, just under the little tiny screws that were already installed there. Just under that. And then we just press on. And there we go. So it looks like this is single fire. Then we will, halfway is burst, and all the way down is full auto. So pretty cool. Alright, so this will go into our last remaining spot, which is the one all the way in the back. Make sure that's on there good. Alright, we are locked in, and we will go ahead and put these two things together. Make sure no wires are hanging out. Just be careful. Okay, let's see if we can set this thing up now. We are going to hold the center button to power it on, and the red light is flashing, so that means it's on, and the green light stays on. So I believe that's what we want. And then you would do the opposite. You would hold the center button to turn it off if you want to turn it off. Let's see if we are working here. So that works just fine. Then we move there, and it should do burst fire. That works just fine. And then we go full auto. Let's go ahead and set up the voltage alarm value. So I'm assuming if the voltage is below this point, it will send an alarm, which is really cool because I wasn't able to place a voltmeter in here, so this will kind of take its place. And I didn't even know that this was a feature, so that's really cool. Hopefully it works. But I'm going to go ahead and try to set this up for, it's really strange. It says 5.6, 7.6, 8.4, 11.4, 11.2, which is weird that it goes from 11.4 to 11.2. So I'm wondering if that's a typo. So just in case, I'm going to set it up for 11.4 volts, and if it goes below that, then it should send an alarm to me. Usually I don't run my LiPos down to even the storage voltage. So 11.4 I'm going to start with, and then if that's a problem, then I'll try the 5 flashes, but I'm not positive that's 11.2 volts because it doesn't really make sense that it would go down in the order it's going. So I'm wondering if that's a typo. So we will go ahead and set this up for 4 flashes, which will be, I think, the appropriate amount for a 3S LiPo, because 3 flashes is definitely 8.4 volts is way too low, so we don't want it to get that low for a 3S LiPo. So we will go ahead and set it up by holding this for 7 seconds. Okay, left or right to set up, so we'll see here. I think that was 4, so hopefully that's what we want. Let's see what happens if I go here. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so we want 4, so we'll go here. 1, 2, 3, 4. So perfect. It is 4 flashes. That is 11.4 volts, and I think that's a good place to have that. And it does say that this will work between 6 volts and 18 volts. I would recommend running it on 2S or 3S. You can run it on truss fires, but you cannot run it on stock AA's. So just know that. All right, well, I guess there's not much to it in terms of setting up. That is pretty straightforward. This is pretty cool. If you're interested in seeing a mod overview of this blaster, there will be an annotation at the top of the screen, probably on the right. And if you want to see a review on this kit, that will be on the left. So thank you so much for watching. Smash that like button. Please subscribe. And as always, peace out.